Hi, this is your test review for the Purple Book, Chapter 1 on Exponents. So let's go ahead and get started here. So let's just review our vocab from this unit. Base. So we're using the number of 5 to the 6th power over there on the left-hand side. So the base, that's the factor in exponential form. So 5 to the 6th, 5 would be our base, whereas 6 would be our exponent. So 5 is the number we're using, and 6 is the number of times it is going to be multiplied by itself. So in other words, we have the number 5. That is from here. This now tells me, that's my exponent. It tells me how many times it will be multiplied. So that's 6 of them. 5 times 5 times 5 5 is 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 5s. Okay, power. So when I could also say this is 5 to the 6th power. Okay. Couple basic facts about exponents. Anything to the first power is itself. So if I said 5 to the first power, that means 5 is being multiplied by itself one time. So that 5 to the first would just be equal to 5. Anything to the 0 power is 1. So the fact there is anything to the 0 power makes it become the number 1. And negative exponents turn the numbers into less than 0. So that's how many times you will divide it by itself. So in other words, if this was 5 to the negative 2, that means I would divide 1 by 5 2 times. That would be equal to 1 over 5 times 5, or 1 over 25. Okay, so we want to write all these in exponential notation. So let's look at the first one. A says 5 times 5 times 5 times 5. So the base of this is obviously a 5. Now I look to my exponent or my power, and I see that there is 4 5s, so that would be 5 to the 4th power. Okay, my next one. Oh, and if I want to do this one, then I would have 25 times 25, or as one of our numbers that we need to know, 5 to the 4th power is 625. The next one is negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2. So my base here is negative 2. My power is 3. And I should know that 2 cubed is 8. But I have 3 negatives if I look up before. So when I multiply 3 negatives, the first 2, that would become a positive. And a positive times a negative creates the negative again. So I would come up with negative 8. Checking out my next one, I have 1/2 as my base. And I have 4 of them. So I'm going to put the whole thing in parentheses and say 4. That means that the whole 1/2 is to the 4th, not just the one on top. So 1/2 to the 4th. So what I basically have is 1 to the 4th over 2 to the 4th, which is equal to 1 to any power is still going to be 1, and 2 to the 4th power is 16. Let's try our next one. Negative 2/3 x. So what I'm saying is negative 2/3 x, and there's 3 of them to the 3rd power. So what this really says is I have a negative 2 to the 3rd power over a 3 to the 3rd power times an x to the 3rd power. Or I'm going to cube negative 2, and we've already done that, and we saw that negative 2 cubed is negative 8. 3 cubed we know is 27 x cubed. That would be my final answer. I could take that negative and I could put it out before, and that would be just as good. I actually prefer to do that when I write it, so if I was really writing this, I would have taken the negative out of that spot and placed it out front. Oh, and that's still an 8. Okay, let's go ahead and go to the next section. Real world problem. So a bacteria doubles every 30 minutes. If you started with 50 bacteria in a sample, how many would you have in 3 hours? Well, let's think about this. First, we got to know how many 30-minute intervals are there in 3 hours. Well, if we think about that, we're like 3 hours, 30-minute intervals. There's 2 30-minute intervals in every hour. So it'd be 6 intervals. So what I'm basically, if I create my expression, I have 50 is what I started at. Then I got to multiply it by 2, by 2, by 2, by 2, by 2, by 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But that's really awkward. That doesn't make my life easy to have this, so I got to make this expression a little simpler. So what I'm going to say is it's 50 times 2, then how many 2's do I have? I have 6 to the 6th power. And then I can work out to get my final answer. Okay, I can find out what 2 to the 6th power is, and if we look at this, let's just take a look at 2 to the 6th power. I know that 2 to the 3rd power is, so 2 to the 3rd power, we have 8. So I can say 2 to the 6th is 8 times 8, because that would be 2 to the 3rd times 2 to the 3rd. So I'll have 50 times 8 times 8. Well, 8 times 8 is 64, so let's keep going. 50 times 64. If I want to multiply that by 50 now, I can cut this in half to go 320. So, ooh, I just made a boo-boo there somewhere. So let's see what I did wrong there. Oh, 3,200. Sorry, that's where my bad came. So we have 3,200 bacteria after that time. So it really blew up. You can imagine if it's doubling, that's going to get really big really fast. Product of quotients and powers. Okay, when you multiply exponents, you add. When you divide exponents, you subtract. It makes life pretty easy. A little bit different than what you've thought before of seen. All I've got to do is add them when I multiply. And let's see why. Because if this says 10 to the 3rd times 10 to the 4th times 10 squared, well, 10 to the 3rd means 10 times 10 times 10, as we already learned. And then that's times 10 to the 4th times 10 times 10 times 10 times 10. And then times 10 squared, which is times 10 times 10. Well, that's kind of a hard way to write something. But I can always now just count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I'd have 10 to the 9th power. Well, it would have been just as easy to say 10 to the 3rd plus 10 to the 4th is 10 to the 7th plus 10 squared is 10 to the 9th. So all I really have to do is add those numbers together to get them. So I can do the same thing here. First, I'm going to multiply them because I can see it's a multiplication. So 4 to the 3rd times 4 to the 4th would be 4 to the 7th. Then I'm going to go 4 squared times 4 to the 1st is 4 to the 3rd. I don't actually change the 4s. I don't go 4 times 4 is 16. All I do is keep the base the same and add the exponents. Well, now that I'm dividing, I need to subtract the exponents. So 4 to the 7th over 4 to the 3rd, I just got to go 7 minus 3 is 4. So it would be 4 to the 4th. And if I know what 4 to the 4th is, that's 256. That's one of your speed numbers, so hopefully we do know that. Okay, so we're going to try to simplify this expression. When I don't have exponents involved and I have numbers, then I will multiply the numbers. So right here it says 6 times 2 times 2. So I'll go ahead and do that. 6 times 2 is 12 times 2 is 24. And now I just have to add up my exponents. I'll look at my x's next. And I have x, if I count them, a 3 and a 4 makes to the 7th. And then I have a y to the 4. Let's see what that's going to be over. I have a 2 times 3, which is 6. Then I have an x squared. And then I have a y to the 6th. Now I've got to do a little bit of canceling, just like if I'm working with fractions. When I work with fractions, I simplify. I look to see what I can do. Well, I have a 24 and a 6. I'm looking for a common factor of 24 and 6. Well, that would be 6. 6 divides into 6 once. 6 goes into 24 4 times. Now I know that I subtract with exponents. I'm going to look for the bigger one. So the 7 is bigger than the 2. So 7. This sign, that division sign there also acts as a subtraction sign. So I'll go 7 minus 2 is 5. So I will have 4 on top. And now I have x to the 5th. Now look, I have a y to the 4th and a y to the 6th. Well, the bigger y is on bottom. So I'm going to put my y on the bottom and go 6 minus 4 is 2. So I'll have y squared. And that will be my final answer. Okay, volume of a cube. If we look at the volume of a cube, not the best at drawing them, but you know, we have a little cube here. And we know that this is a side, this is a side, and this is a side. If it's a cube, they should all be the exact same, and that's why we'll call it S. So the formula for the volume of a cube would be S cubed, because all 3 sides should be exactly the same. So if I do that, that should mean, and this actually is not correct the way I wrote this, so I am sorry about that. It cannot be the volume of a cube has sides like that. That would be the volume of a rectangular prism. Okay, now that's more accurate for us, because that would be length times width times height. And it's a little different than a cube where all 3 sides are the same, because I can see those sides aren't the same. So now I'll go length is 3x. Width is 5x, and height is 10x. And I'm going to tell you right now, it doesn't matter which one you call which. You can call any of them length, any of them width, any of them height, as long as you're consistent. So as we look at this, just like on our last one, our numbers we will multiply. 3 times 5 is 15, times 10 is 150. Now I just have to count my x's. 1, 2, 3. That's x cubed. And I am done. Let's see what's up next here. The power of a power. Whenever I take a power to a power, all I'm going to do is multiply the exponents. But let's once again see why. So right here, if I just look at to this part, it says 3 to the 4th to the 3rd power. So that means I'd have 3 to the 4th times 3 to the 4th times 3 to the 4th. If I look at that, if I do that, 3 to the 4th, that's 4 3s. 3 to the 4th again is 4 3s, and 3 to the 4th again is 4 3s. Or we've already learned that you keep the base the same and add. So that'd be 3 to the 12th. Well, but now I see that I now have to square that. So that is going to be squared, which means that I have to do that twice. 3 to the 12th times 3 to the 12th. And we know that whenever we are multiplying exponents, we add. So my final answer should be 3 to the 24th power. And if we look at the beginning, 4 times 3 is 12, times 2 is 24. Okay, let's look at this on the bottom. We'll do inside first. And we know that all we ever have to do when the bases are the same is add our exponents. So I have a 2 as a base, and my exponents are 3 and 4. So I should now have 2 to the 7th inside of my exponent, but it says cubed. And from what we just learned, when we raise a power to a power, we multiply them. So 2 to the 7th to the 3rd means multiply 7 times 3, so I have 2 to the 21st power. Okay, power of a product. So now I'm going to take a look at these, and I have 2 cubed times 6 cubed. In this case, I'm going to just multiply the numbers because their powers are the same. So when the powers are the same, I can multiply them, and I can say that is 12 cubed. Same thing here. I have a cube and a cube, so I can multiply the numbers. 2 and 1 is 2 on top. 3 and 5 is 15, and that whole thing is cubed. And last one, same thing, the 2m over 10x. I'm going to cube everything. So 2 cubed is 8. M cubed all over 10 cubed is 1,000. X cubed. And I would be done. Negative and 0 exponents. 3 to the negative 2. That means I'm dividing by 3 twice. So I start with a 1 and I divide by 3 twice, or that is 1/9. Okay, 5 to the negative 5 times 5 squared. Well, from what we've learned before, when the bases are the same, it's both a 5, I add. So I'm adding a negative 5 and a 2, which is negative 3. On C, I've said that anything to the 0 power is 1. In this one here, we're looking to see which one has the bigger number. So 2 to the 10th is bigger than 2 to the 7th. So I'm going to go 10 minus 7. That will equal 1 over 2 cubed, or 1 over 8. Okay, perfect squares and cubes. Yes, we need to know all our perfect squares and cubes. Here's a list. You can pause it on this if you'd like to see more. Real world geometry problems. You have a square room with an area of 289 square feet. I will draw my square. This is 289. So area equals s squared. So we need to know the area of a square. If I need to find this, I will plug it in. I have 289 equals s squared. I will take the square root of both things, and that comes out to be 17 equals s. Last one, you have a ball with a volume of 49 pi square inches. So I know that volume equals 4/3 pi r. So I got to make sure I'm looking at the right thing. Pi r cubed. So my final answer was 4,900 pi. I'm actually going to give this and make this a little bit easier number for us to see right now, and I'm going to call this 27,000 pi. So I'll put 27,000 in right here, equals 4/3 pi r cubed. We don't know what r is. Oops, and that should have said pi. So first I will divide by pi. I will divide by pi. I'll get 27